The Labor Management Relations Act of 1947, also known as the Taft-Hartley Act, was a U.S. law that, among other things, required union leaders to sign affidavits stating that they were not communists. If they refused, their unions were barred from using the National Labor Relations Board and therefore unable to stand up for their rights as workers. What this led to was mass purges of union leaders for nothing more than being suspected of holding communist sympathies. This is just one of the many instances of the land of the free cherishing freedom of expression, speech, and diversity of opinion. We're always lectured about America's stalwart defense of civil liberties and democratic freedoms, but we rarely make a big fuss about all of the times those purported beliefs are undermined by the very system that claims to hold them. Although the letter of the law may not explicitly prohibit folks from speaking their minds, dissenting, or expressing themselves in a way that strays from the State Department status quo, in practice, you'll find that the US government finds ways to force you into compliance. After Hurricane Harvey devastated the state of Texas in 2017, people applying for disaster aid and relief funding found themselves forced to sign pledges that stated that they would not participate in any sort of boycott of the State of Israel. Hey, your house just got completely fucked up in a hurricane? Well, if you don't want to be homeless, you better support the state we prop up in the Middle East that expands our hegemony and ability to extract resources abroad. These anti-boycott laws apply to those receiving state funding and government contracts as well. So why am I telling you this? US exceptionalism is not only prominent within the minds of many Americans, but Westerners in general. We're programmed to believe that no other country offers such personal freedoms and civil liberties to its citizenry. Americans are told to overlook the economic inequality, the constant imperialism, expansion, and foreign wars for profit, because at least they can speak their mind and express themselves how they please. But this has never truly been the case. The US has never truly held a principled stance on the importance of freedom and democracy. If they did, they wouldn't have spent the past century propping up fascist dictators around the world for the purpose of protecting capital and extracting profit.
And then they say he left troops in Syria. You know what I did? I left troops to take the oil. I took the oil. The only troops I have are taking the oil. They're protecting the oil. I took over
We're taking
the oil.
We're not taking the
well,
oil.
maybe we will, maybe we won't.
You're protecting the facility.
I don't know. Maybe we should take it.
America exports aggression and anti-democracy all over the world. Even its closest allies aren't safe. Take it from a Canadian, whose country, by the way, is not so innocent itself. And that brings me to the story of Mahmoud Khalil. Khalil is a Palestinian graduate of Columbia University who was arrested a few days ago for his role in organizing pro-Palestinian protests against the State of Israel and its genocidal activities. But according to Trump, the reason for his arrest is because he is a radical foreign pro-Hamas student responsible for pro-terrorist, anti-Semitic, and anti-American activity. These claims remain unsubstantiated by any concrete evidence, and given Trump's tendency to conflate any support for the Palestinian cause with Hamas, I find his assertion very hard to believe. It has now been 4 days since Khalil's detainment. If there were solid evidence of his support for Hamas, he would have been charged with something by now. Instead, this just feels like a blatant attack on free speech. A few days ago, ICE showed up to his apartment to arrest him. Didn't tell him or his pregnant US citizen wife why, and now his green card is apparently being revoked. Mahmoud Khalil is a legal immigrant, a permanent resident. He has not been charged with any crime, so this is nothing more than political persecution. Not very democratic. Secretary of State Marco Rubio tweeted that the US government will be revoking the visas and/or green cards of Hamas supporters in America so they could be deported, but failed to provide any evidence of Khalil's supposed support for Hamas. Again, Khalil is a political prisoner, and according to Donald Trump's post on Truth Social, there will be more cases like his to come. Marco Rubio is a particularly disgusting excuse for a man who has no problem bypassing Congress to send billions of dollars worth of arms to a genocidal regime that has been acting out the most depraved atrocities imaginable. From the use of 2,000-pound bombs in crowded civilian areas, the targeting of holy sites, hospitals, and schools, while filming themselves bragging about and mocking the destruction, targeting civilians by bombing their residences without warning, building illegal settlements in occupied territory, and so much more. Rubio is also known to line his pockets with a good amount of money from pro-Israel lobbyists. Maybe that's why he overlooks the dozens of thousands of kids Israel has obliterated over the past year alone. If any of this shit was actually about taking a stance against terrorism, they wouldn't be going after someone standing up for Palestinians. They would go after those supporting the IDF, which is, by definition, a terrorist organization due to its proclivity to attack and target civilians for political gain. For a detailed look at the genocide and war crimes that the Israeli forces have been carrying out for the past year and a half, you can check out this video where I go over an Amnesty International report on the topic, and talk about the legalities and specifics. The case of Mahmoud Khalil is nothing more than purposeful conflation of anti-Zionism with anti-Semitism for political gain. Khalil is on record denouncing anti-Semitism for the evil that it is. In an interview with CNN, he said, "As a Palestinian student, I believe that the liberation of the Palestinian people and the Jewish people are intertwined and go hand by hand, and you cannot achieve one without the other." He went on to say, "Our movement is a movement for social justice and freedom and equality for everyone, and that there is no room for anti-Semitism." But of course, none of that matters because he isn't being targeted because the Trump administration actually gives a flying fuck about bigotry. He's being targeted because he's a Palestinian dude leading protests against America's favorite outpost in the Middle East, and Trump's administration wants to make an example out of him. Trump sycophants and right-wing media pundits have also been quick to make excuses for this depravity. If we head on over to everyone's favorite alt-right app, X, we can see just how many right-wingers feel the need to defend this blatant expression of authoritarianism. Ben Shapiro, when he's not retweeting in support of collective punishment for the entirety of Gaza, is pushing the narrative that Khalil's arrest is actually based and good because he was apparently supporting terrorism. But as we've been over already, there's no evidence of that. Just the same claims made by the State Department that he was handing out pro-Hamas propaganda. These claims, of course, have yet to be backed up with any concrete evidence. I wonder if these dipshits would feel the same about support for the IDF, an organ of a terrorist state known to literally rip civilians to death. Anyway, I just felt the need to make this quick video because this story is probably one of the more infuriating ones I've heard in a while, and that's saying a lot. Keep an eye on Khalil's case because this is not something we should just forget about and stop making a fuss over. This is, again, political persecution from an authoritarian state. Alright, I'll have a longer video for you guys this weekend. Thanks.